All right, let's go ahead and kick things off. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Hannah Crapo. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Certiport. We're so happy to have you joining us for our webinar this morning. Like I said earlier, please feel free to drop into the chat with any questions that you have, or just to get to know each other a little bit better. Tell us where you're joining us from, what classes you teach, so that we can all collaborate and hopefully walk away with some wonderful action items, some takeaway points for our classrooms as we all collaborate today. The session is being recorded, excuse me. So you'll receive a link to the full recording via email after the presentation. So if you are on mute but have questions throughout, that chat is open for you. So feel free to drop in those questions and we'll make sure to address those with our panelists here after we've finished our discussion. Now, today we're talking about how to pivot to success with the new MOS Excel certifications for accounting and finance. And we have two wonderful panelists who are here with us today. First, we have Caroline Dill. She's our product marketing manager at Certiport, where she leads the global marketing strategies for major clients such as Microsoft and Unity, including the Microsoft Office Specialist program. Before joining Certiport, Caroline held leadership roles in the publishing industry, where she co-chaired major initiatives to strengthen institutional partnerships and expand access to academic research. Outside of work, she enjoys reading, collecting antiques, and exploring history through traveling with her husband and their two dogs. And second, we have Jennifer Johnson. Jennifer is a CPA licensed in the state of Texas. She owns and manages a client accounting practice utilizing technology and automation to help clients enact change through information. From 2009 to 2025, Jennifer was a professor of instruction at the University of Texas at Dallas, where she taught accounting systems, data analytics, QuickBooks software, CPA exam preparation, and Excel courses. In 2024, Jennifer was named CPA of the Year by the Texas CPA Dallas, and in 2017, she was named an Outstanding Accounting Educator by Texas CPA. Jennifer co-authored 6 editions of Computerized Accounting with QuickBooks Online. Before joining the University of Texas at Dallas in 2009, Jennifer spent time in both public accounting and industry as an auditor at PwC, an assistant controller at the regional financial services firm, and a finance manager at Keurig Dr. Pepper. Jennifer holds both a BBA and an MS in accounting from Texas A&M University. She's a QuickBooks Pro Advisor, certified MOS Excel expert, and actively volunteers for her community. She lives in Dallas, Texas, and has been married for over 20 years and has 2 college-age kids whom she is very proud of. So we have 2 incredible women here with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that we can see everyone a little bit better. All right, thank you so much for being here, everyone. First, we're going to go ahead and kick things off with some questions for Jennifer. So Jennifer, let's just go ahead and dive in. Tell us why Microsoft Excel is considered an essential tool in business, finance, and accounting today.
I think it even goes beyond just business, finance, and accounting. I think Excel is just a universal language that most folks in any business are using. Even my husband, who is a programmer for IBM, calls me and says, "Hey, how do I do this thing in Excel?" So I think, especially in accounting and finance, we live in Excel day to day, all the time. But even beyond that, Excel is just kind of the necessary tool.
Agreed. So with the rise of specialized financial software, and we've talked about, having Excel being used outside of the accounting and finance industry, why do you think Excel remains so relevant, even though there are other more specialized applications out there?
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen in the chat several of the teachers popping in saying they teach QuickBooks or they teach a systems class. If you open up most accounting software, you open up your banking app, your credit card statement online, there is always a button that says download the data to Excel or download the data to a CSV, because you are going to want to take that data and transform it into some kind of information that you want to do something with. So Excel again is kind of that mediary in the middle. It takes all that data and helps people do that. And yes, there are many specialized tools, but not everybody has those specialized tools. So Excel is the way we can level the playing field and make sure everybody can use it.
I love that. So thinking about your time in the classroom, What Microsoft Office skills do you think are most critical for finance and accounting professionals to master? And now you have obviously experience in industry to speak to that as well. So, what are your thoughts about the skills with Microsoft Excel that are most important?
Oh my gosh. You know, it starts at just the basic level. Can we create a spreadsheet? Can we add and subtract on it? I mean, I kind of joke sometimes as an accountant. I mean, I add and subtract, and on a good day, I get to multiply and divide. But with these specializations that Caroline is going to talk about, where we are taking Excel and putting its focus on accounting and finance, it's going beyond just the adding and subtracting. It is talking about how do we use some of those special financial formulas? How do we create a spreadsheet that can communicate? It's one thing where we can pop open a spreadsheet and put some numbers in to give us a number or a value that we need. But if you're creating the spreadsheet to communicate financials, to talk to your board of directors, heck, to even just explain how to calculate something to the rest of your staff, you've got to be able to prepare a good spreadsheet, meeting all the fundamental requirements, and actually know how to do the calculations on top of it. So it's a little bit more than just formatting and adding and subtracting. It's the whole package.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. So, Caroline, we're coming to you next. Give us a brief overview. Obviously, the MOS program or the Microsoft Office Specialist program has had Excel certification for a long time. But these new exams, the Microsoft Office Specialist, Excel for Accounting Associate, and the MOS Excel for Business Finance Associate exams are a little bit different and more focused. So, give us a little bit of a bigger picture of what those exams are all about.
Okay, thanks, Hannah. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. So I think maybe a good place to start, just based on some of the conversations I see in the chat, is zooming out a little bit and giving some context around our Microsoft Office certification program. So this program is not new to probably a lot of you, but it is a certification suite that validates skills in all of our Microsoft Office applications. One thing that's super special about the certification program in general is that it's actually backed by Microsoft. So we partner really closely with them, and it's the global standard of skill validation with Microsoft applications. And these two exams in particular, much like our other exams, what makes this really special, and we talk about skill validation, during this entire webinar, is that they are actually live in the application. So a lot of the things that Jennifer just highlighted is it's not just testing people's knowledge. But it's actually making them go through the application. So the testing happens in the application, and they have to do job related tasks and projects. And we measure that on the back end. But zooming into then these role specific certifications, so our Excel for Accounting Associate and Excel for Business Finance Associate, from like more of a tactical perspective, they're each around 50 minutes long, but really, like Jennifer mentioned, they focus around specific job roles. So for the Excel for Accounting Associate, the job roles that this really maps into are the entry level accountants. So you're looking obviously at those who are accountants, but then also bookkeepers, auditors, where the Business Finance Associate exam is going to be really focused towards, I'm sure everyone can guess it, finance professionals, but specifically looking at, the financial analysts side of things. So the real thing with this was when we develop these exams, what are the real world role specific Excel skills that these professionals are going to use day in and day out? I know there was a couple of things in the chat too of saying, okay, where does this fit in? How do I integrate it into the class? But looking at these together, one thing just to put in some context is really we're recommending these new certifications for higher level high school. So think 11th and 12th grade. Also think post-secondary students who are pursuing finance and accounting degrees, and even in some case, Masters of Business Administration programs, so even graduate level programs. And the easiest way to think about scaffolding the different skills is really we recommend starting off with, that accounting exam as the first step, and then follow it up by the business finance exams. And then, as Hannah mentioned, we do have existing Excel certifications. So our Excel Associate, which is going to have more of those like foundational skills of Excel along with our Excel Expert exams. But these are really, really focused around those specific job roles.
I love that. And I think one thing that's different from our MOS Excel certifications is that we have an expectation because these are mapped to certain roles that students have background information as it relates to finance and accounting. So tell us, what type of expertise, Caroline, do students need to be able to sit for these exams?
Yes, so that's a great question, Hannah. So I would recommend, and we can send some of the more particulars about the objective domains, the requirements and things, but we do recommend that students come into these certification exams with some sort of knowledge of Microsoft Excel. And then obviously it fits seamlessly as you're learning accounting concepts, finance concepts, etc. We always say to actually be ready to sit for the exams, it can be anywhere from 150 hours of hands-on practice. I know that seems really daunting when you break it down, but really it's just hands-on practice in Excel, classroom experience, so it fits seamlessly into specific courses. And then really looking at what these exams actually cover, and can just focus around like the accounting associate exam, for instance. The accounting associate exam is really highlighting and focusing around the general accepted accounting principles. So, which are the primary accounting standards in the United States. And that's what it's founded on. So, it's ideal for those looking in the United States for, accounting degrees, professions, and then kind of from like a looser perspective as far as what it actually covers is a lot of what Jennifer mentioned a little bit earlier of those foundational knowledges that you need to know with accounting. So everything from preparing accounting data, creating those trial balances, analyzing financial statements, and then even those routine activities that I'm sure a lot of you love, like data validation, formatting, transformation, etc. Whereas our business finance associate, like very similar to the accounting, you do want to come in with some knowledge. And that's why we recommend maybe starting off with the accounting exam first and then scaffolding into that business finance associate. But that's all going to be around, financial data. So cleaning, exporting financial data, budget variances, investment analysis, and then financial forecasts and dashboards. So you really see these two exams be very different. I know on the forefront of when we created this, we thought, oh, we can cram this all in one exam. And I'm sure that those in the chat that teach these class, you probably are laughing at us like, ha ha ha, you can't cram all this into one exam. So we really differentiated between the two just based on the market feedback. So that would be the recommendation.
Wonderful. And thinking about, you've talked about some of the skills or the topics that are covered on the exam. What are some of the Excel skills or tasks that are tested specifically within these new certifications?
Yes. So probably the easiest way to answer that question is I can drop in, rather than you listen to me list off a whole list of things, we can drop in the objective domains. So you can go down through those specific categories and then see the actual tasks and things that are covered in the exam. That's probably going to be the easiest to do, Hannah, on
That's
this question.
perfect. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Going a little bit further, Caroline, how do these certifications align with the demands between finance and accounting roles in today's workplace? So you talked about, obviously, we initially thought we could map these all into one certification. What was the decision behind separating those, and how does that work for workplace job roles that students are looking for?
Perfect. So to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, all of the certifications that we create, we ultimately kind of start off with a giant research project. So we really want to understand what is happening in the job market. What are the skills that are needed? And interestingly enough, one thing that we found, and I think this isn't just happening in the finance and accounting industry, it's happening in nearly every industry, is that there is a growing skills gap that is happening. So students are graduating from high school, from college, going into entry-level jobs, and they don't have all of the skills that are needed, you know what I mean, to meet their employer's demands. And when they zoomed in on the finance and accounting sector specifically, it's not even a skills gap. It was becoming a skills chat like chasm, so to speak. I know one of the things that we looked at, or they looked at, was like a Robert Half study where they found that 71% of finance and accounting leaders reported that, entry level professionals weren't ready to fully go into their jobs or didn't have the skills or knowledge needed to really be successful. With that being said, another thing that I found really interesting as the team was briefing me on all of the research they did too is, and I'll zoom into the accounting industry. Right now, we are seeing and Jennifer, I don't know if you're seeing this on your side, but a mass exodus is almost happening in some of these specific job roles where a lot of people are starting to retire out of, accounting firms in accounting roles as well. So you're kind of seeing two dynamics take place and the overall market shifts. So I think one of the things that went into building the certification exam is how can we actually bridge that gap? So obviously there was that extensive research that happened. Also, our team really focuses on psychometrically measuring the exams as well. But one thing that's, and I like to think kind of like our secret sauce, so to speak, not to give away too many of our insider secrets here, but we actually bring in industry experts, so like Jennifer, who's on this call, as well as other educators to help us navigate and really identify what are the essential tasks and skills for each of the roles that we're mapping to and rating their importance, right? As much as we want to fit all of the knowledge into, one class, one exam, that's not possible. And then ultimately through this, we're able to map up a larger picture of ultimately what should be tested. And through this whole process, not only are the certifications research backed, but it really helps us align with that overall industry need and providing candidates and students with the practical skills that they'll actually use in their careers. So hopefully that answers that question, Hannah.
Yes, it does. And I'm going to ask Jennifer to lend us her expertise here. Thinking about what Caroline has shared with the shifts in the market and the gaps that we're seeing at the entry level, from your experience in the classroom and now your experience in industry, Jennifer, what do you see as far as the gaps between what's being taught in the classroom and what's expected in the workplace?
I think the biggest gap is that translation ability. It's one thing, as most of the educators on this call probably know, it's one thing to define a formula and be able to write it on paper or answer it on a test question and work it out or pick it off of a Scantron or something. But it's another when you're presented with a financial document and a loan agreement and you have to go calculate the return on the investment or determine if we should even spend that $100,000 to make this loan or this investment. And I think this exam really bridges that gap. So I've taken myself and taught personally the initial Microsoft MOS certifications, the associate and expert level, and those are great at teaching the skill in Excel, but seeing these exams on the other side now, the accounting and finance, it marries the accounting and finance knowledge. So instead of just seeing a spreadsheet with some numbers, you might actually see a loan agreement and say, let's go through and analyze this. So if you compare the objectives that Caroline was talking about, there might be an objective that says, use a financial formula to calculate interest. Okay, anybody can learn how to do that. But if we have an objective now that says, let's evaluate options for loans, now the student really has to bring in their finance or accounting knowledge. They have to know how to do this and present this in Excel and ultimately communicate that back out to business professionals. So I see this as a complete win for educators. It's kind of that tool that was missing where you could teach Excel, you could teach accounting, but this is going to put all of those things together and really give them a way to show that a student has practical experience. And I think the employers are going to love this too. It's just going to make one less thing that an employer has to teach their new staff or their intern.
Thinking about those employers, and we've talked a lot, obviously, this is heavily focused on Excel and the skills that are needed within Excel in the finance and accounting fields. But let's zoom out a little bit and think about what are some other crucial skills that these young professionals need to be able to succeed in their job role. So Jennifer, what are your thoughts about that? Outside of Excel, what skills are professionals looking for in new hires?
I think skill number one is the ability to communicate. As our younger students are growing up, they've learned to communicate in, emojis and LOLs and, in real life or whatever that abbreviation is, right? I have college age kids, so I have a hard time communicating even with my own children some days. So it's helping a student really learn how to take direction and instruction in a real world scenario, be able to perform an analysis using their knowledge from their classroom, and then being able to present it in a way that tells a story. It communicates it back out. So even through these exams, you're adding that communication skill. And educators, I think one of the things you could challenge your students on is helping them learn how to think strategically. Maybe if I were back in the classroom, I might have my students take this exam initially just to kind of see or take some questions from it and see where they are level set, and then use that as an opportunity to build their critical thinking skills, their communication skills, their questioning skills, to help them learn how to research and analyze and understand how to do it, and then give them the exam again to see if they've really put those pieces back together.
I like that. I think we often talk about the hard skills, right? Because certification a lot is focused on the technology, it's focused on being able to use the technology effectively. But the soft skills of analysis and creative thinking, it's such a big part of those accounting and finance roles. And one of the things that I think fairly recently has become a big part of the discussion as well is the role that artificial intelligence plays in all of these different jobs that these students are going into. So, in your experience, Jennifer, what role does AI have in the future of finance and accounting?
I think we all just need to accept it's here and people are going to use it. So, especially when it comes to finance and accounting, there's some very specific rules, very specific regulations that constantly change. As educators, I felt like this myself, is we need to train them how to use the AI tool to help guide, but then they've got to go verify. Um, Depending on how that AI tool was trained, it may not always give you the right answer, but it will give you things to think about. It will give you ways to evaluate or assess it, but it still comes back to the individual, to the human, to be able to verify that, to make sure that they are giving the right advice. I think just the other day I was listening to a presentation on an accounting podcast, and they were talking about the fines that so many people have gotten because they used advice from TikTok to do their tax returns. And it was wrong advice and it wasn't good. So they just thought, hey, it was on TikTok, it's got to be perfect. That's what we need to teach our students about AI is even if AI says this is how you do it, you need to be able to go back it up with the rules, the regulations, the pronouncements, all of those things.
The expertise is still needed, right? And going back
Mhm.
into your comment about analysis and those creative thinking, having that background knowledge is so important to be able to effectively use the technology, both AI and then within Microsoft Excel as well. So, Caroline, I'm going to come to you next and get your thoughts. How do these certifications, we've talked a lot about what's expected in industry, how do they help finance and accounting professionals demonstrate the expertise that employers are really looking for?
Course. And first, I just have to applaud Jennifer for her answers on the last two questions. I'm over here just like rejoicing. So I 100% agree with you, Jennifer, as far as like communication, AI, and everything. Just to add a little bit, I think too, when you go into these accounting and finance positions, I know depending on what path you choose, sometimes you're not talking to people who are experts in accounting and finance. You're talking to clients, and they might be coming to you for that industry expertise, or you're talking to other departments within companies as well. And it's so extremely important to be able to communicate not only what you're doing, right, and but how you actually did it, and make sure that you're communicating to the right audience. But I just wanted to add that in, like, the answer was beautiful, Jennifer. But looking at the question that you asked me, Hannah, one thing that really these exams do and showcase to employers, I know I mentioned a little bit earlier, they are backed by Microsoft and they are globally recognized. I know one of the kind of fun things we like to say internally is, I could say that I am a master knitter on my resume. You know what I mean? Or I'm really, really good at cooking, or, you can list out a whole bunch of different skills on your resume. But at the end of the day, it really gives the employers the confidence to know that you have the skills because you not only have that industry recognized certification, you get a shiny Credly badge. There's full, companies backing these specific skill sets. And I think that's one of the most important things. I know in talking to a lot of hiring managers in my current role, they often say that, when they see a certification on a resume, that it automatically puts that candidate up towards the top. Or they'll dig into, and obviously it's important to be able to talk through, the skills that are validated, especially really important for these students to communicate these skills. But it's just another feather in that larger portfolio as students are going out and finding jobs where they can really showcase to employers that they have the skills needed. Because at the end of the day, I know the job market's crazy right now, and there's a lot of really steep competition in specific job roles. And this gives another opportunity to help strengthen that professional development and then also that portfolio as well, and really give an edge above the competition.
I love that. And I'm sure, Jennifer, you saw something similar as you got your students certified when you were in the classroom. But how do you think specifically these new certifications, help professionals demonstrate their skills to employers?
I think it really helps demonstrate that they know not only Excel, but accounting. And it really helps an employer see that they have one less thing they have to train somebody on. If I could get somebody to come in and from day one, they can hit the ground running because they already have this knowledge of accounting or finance and they have the knowledge of Excel. Again, that just makes them more productive from day one and sets them apart from somebody who doesn't have that combination.
I love that. So Jennifer, I'm going to lean on you again here before we dive into some of the questions that have been dropped into the chat. We have a lot of educators who are here with us, which is so wonderful. Thinking about the students that all of these people work with, what advice would you give to these young professionals that these educators can pass on to their classrooms about what it's like to enter the accounting and finance industry?
I think the biggest piece of advice you can share with them is this is not your parents' accounting and finance world anymore. Um, I love accounting and finance because it's always changing. Students sometimes want to gravitate to the more sexy, fun kind of careers, right? The technology, the gaming, the be a YouTube influencer. You can do all of that, but still be an accountant or a finance professional. So tell your students it's not your parents' accounting and finance industry. It utilizes massive amounts of technology. If you're going to get an accounting degree and you want to go be that TikTok influencer, you can be. And heck, you could be the one giving the good advice and making a lot of money being that YouTube educator, right? Um, you can get into developing apps with AI and the true, right, correct accounting foundation underneath them. So it's not boring taxes and just preparing financial statements and sitting behind a desk with the old green school visor and pencils. Yes, you could do that if you want, but there's just so much more to it. And I wish there was a cool way to demonstrate that and explain it, but I think it's up to y'all as the pioneers here trying to help us grow this pipeline and grow this profession that help the students see that you can marry the cool and fun stuff with this truly, really fundamental need that's out there, and your students will go far.
That is beautiful. And what a wonderful way to encapsulate everything that we've talked about today. So thank you for that, Jennifer. We have a couple questions that have come into the chat. Caroline, these are going to come to you, but I'll drop the first one here first. And if you have additional questions, please feel free to add them as we go through this discussion. The first question that came in, does the Microsoft Excel accounting certification expire once it's received? So I know we've recently announced some changes to our expiration policy. Caroline, can you give a little bit of light here on that one?
So for these exams currently, they will not expire. I know on some of our other Microsoft Office Specialist programs, we have, I believe, a 4-year expiration date on some of these, but just to provide some of that flexibility, knowing that, you know, they're going potentially through a college degree, which is going to take 4 years, and then go into the professional world, which is that extra 5 years. We currently don't have an expiration date on these.
Perfect. Next question that was dropped into the chat, has learning content been developed for these certifications and when will that be available?
That's a great question. So right now it has been confirmed that we will have cert prep practice tests. So, and it's powered by Gmetrics. So it's on the Gmetrics platform, which will simulate, the testing experience to help measure exactly what Jennifer said, measure to see where they're at. Those will be released later this year. And then as far as actual learning content, I can't divulge any details yet, but we are underway with some of our learning product partners. So we'll definitely keep everyone on this webinar updated once those formal announcements have been made, but that is underway as well.
Perfect. And I just wanted to call attention to the chat for those who haven't been able to see that if you're looking for additional information or a little bit more context around these exams, Caroline has dropped in the objective domains so that you can see all of the skills and expertise that's going to be required to sit for these certifications. And we will link those as well in the recording notes, as well as our follow-up email so that you can get a little bit more detail there. But it looks like those have answered the majority of our questions. I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone who is here with us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn a little bit more about these upcoming certifications. Looks like some people haven't been able to see those objective domains, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop those in here. Again, for people who need to see those. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer, Caroline. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. We really, really appreciate it. If there are any questions, again, please feel free to respond to that recording link email, and we will put you in touch with a Certiport representative to assist you and give you answers to any questions that you may have. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We really appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.